Chapter 11. The Life in Between. The next week, Evan was waiting for me at the coffee shop, and I came late, slightly exhausted. Her face light up when she saw me walking, and when I made a move to order the usual for us, she made a hand gesture telling me to don't bother. I walk closer as her smile becomes clearer. I'd like to take you somewhere. We leave the shop and walk in silence. The fading June afternoon escorted us as we stroll. I look over my shoulder with my hands on my pants, seeing if there's anything troubling her again, as she doesn't usually ask us out anywhere other than the coffee shop and the park. As we reached the 4th Street, the city noise faded away. At the same time, the sun slowly brims its light away from the sky. And only then I realized I was grateful that we didn't spend the afternoon in the coffee shop. The steps where she's leading me looks like it's going the opposite way of the park. I remained silent, appreciating the little mystery as to where we could end up going to. A few minutes passed, and soon her walks slowed. As we enter yet what seemed like another park, I assumed it was another park, given how lush the trees are surrounding it. But I let Evan guide me, and soon enough, we were crossing fences and gates, and surprisingly, there were not much people around to scold us into entering. Soon, she led me towards a flat, wooden deck, leading us to a small river, with another long, wooden footbridge stretched across the water. I stopped for a second to take in the view of the sun, setting beautifully from afar, leaving magical trails sprinkling through the waves. I looked over at Evan and saw her smile, her eyes fixed on the fading horizon, and I began to relax. We found a white painted wood chair facing the river. We sat in silence, admiring the river, the sunset, the wind, and how cool it feels to our skin. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's still beautiful." I looked over to her, only acknowledging then that she must have been here before. And I was right. She then retell me the story about her father who always bring her here with her sister, letting me know this is a place she grew up spending the best of her weekends with. "You miss being here?" I asked. There was a sad look that crossed her eyes, but it went away just as easily as she managed a faint smile. "Yes," she softly whispers. "All the time." I watch as our shadows appear in the fading light, and a sinking feeling roll over me. Time and time again, I realize how frightening dying could be for Evan, thinking that everything she used to visit, everything she used to spend time around, things she used to cherish around places like this, will still be here, but she won't. This might be the last time she'll be able to feel it around her, see it alive. And she has brought me here with her, and that makes every moment of this afternoon precious. She was reminded of the life she could have going back here. We stayed in that moment until twilight, and only then, Evan pulled out something from her backpack. "What is it?" I asked. "I bought you something." I watched her fish out a faded brown notebook and she wistfully opened it and quickly ran through the pages, bristling it from the first pages to the last. She handed it to me. I want you to have it. I took it and opened the first page. It says, Evan's diary, and a sudden tightness hovered over my chest. I gently give it back to her. I can't. It's yours now, she said cheerfully. There are remaining blank pages. She touches my hand. I want you to write everything, as in everything that happened after I'm gone. Evan, please. Her voice sounded soft, yet pleading. You'll need it, I'm sure. Isn't losing you not enough? I whispered, and her head ducked, hearing this. I can't accept this. It's like she's saying goodbye to me, and I know I'll have to deal with it later, but now I just can't. She's still here. We're still here. I want you to have it, she whispered. You would know me better in these pages. You won't lose me, ever, if you have it. She felt me standing up, but she prevented me, her hands on my arms, and soon she gripped both of my hands on hers. Her face were filled with tears, as mine starts coming. I'm already losing my mind, I whispered. I know there's no way I can have you longer, but everything you're giving me will not be the same as you being here, and being here for long. She pushed the notebook back in my palms again, and the way she did it made me clutch it tighter. There was a feeling of determination in her touches, how her brown eyes held mine. When you miss me, just open this notebook. Read it. Read me. She sniffs. And remember me, just like this moment. And I'll be with you. For always. She pulled me into an embrace as the sun sets over the horizon. She pulled me into an embrace as the sun sets over the horizon. The fear I had since the day I knew, and the fear I have hearing her like this had come out in forms of tears. Realizing we're more closer to that goodbye than we ever had anticipated. As soon as I met her sister in the lobby, she pointed me in a room upstairs. I walked my way through the familiar hallway, passing through some open wards. Their light guides me to where Evan would be. A nurse passed by me, busy scanning the paper she has in hand, and I sprinted as to not get her attention as I passed through the last 2 meters, separating me from the hall. Once I'm sure of the room, I open it quietly. The sight of Evan lying on the bed, weak, got me releasing the breath I never noticed I was holding. She heard the door creaking, and her surprised face looks up to me, seeing me there in my faded jeans and shirt, panting. She raised her upper body to sit straight, but I quickly stopped her. I held on to her hands, supporting her as she again lay down on the bedsheet. Evan, I don't want you to see this, she finally said, her voice a little lower than usual. It must be the medicine. I flash a bitter smile as I tightly hold onto her hands, stalling. You let me pick your coffin for you, and you're going to tell me I should not see this? I swallowed a mixed pain and sadness is starting to churn in my throat as I said this, casting her a little smile. Evan, what am I going to do with you? Luckily, she laughs at the thought. Now you know how weird I truly am. Beautifully weird, I mused. There was a twinkle in her brown eyes that I never saw for days, one that I missed seeing. This alone tells me she's happy to see me, even though she said that she didn't want me to witness any of this. As if she would spare me this privilege, the whole idea of seeing her in this situation, sparing me the pain of it all. I wouldn't, and I won't let her alone in this. So, she whispered weakly, did you snuck in here like Gus did when Hazel was in the hospital? My mind quickly remembers the story she is referring to, and I smiled at her bravery to still be teasing at this time, when there's nothing to smile about. No, I didn't actually sneak in. Your sister let me through. I'm glad she did. I'm worried about her. She's becoming more restless these days because of me being here and all. I plucked a little strand of her hair out of her ear and marveled at her features. She still bore the same face I met that day in the coffee shop, only weaker, only vulnerable, but nonetheless still beautiful. She just wants to keep you comfortable, I think. I know, she replied. Everyone does. I ran my free fingers across her cheeks. We all do. She shrugged it off and asked me about what I think about her sister. The same sister who was a little surprised earlier, knowing I came here for Evan, was surprised to know what she is really going through. She's never used to me having stable friends. Evan said, after I left school a year ago, I lost all my friends away to college and their dreams and professions. Would you like that yourself? I asked. The city, the college, and all. She stared past me, as if imagining her life she could possibly have in college, the city, the exciting chances she can have there. She smiled faintly. I think I'll love the city. She heaves a deep sigh. But nothing can send me away from here, even if I'm not. She paused, thinking of the word. She swallowed hard, and her hands grew weaker in mine. She never finished her thought. She then later told me that soon she'll be transferred back home, probably a few days from now, as her sister arranged. Dr. Ben wants to make sure I'm strong enough to go back home before I, well, I know what she means, and I didn't want to hear her say it. I tried to cheer her up, asking if I can stay here for longer, for the day, or for the next few days. Don't you have to be working? She said with a little hint of teasing. I laughed a little, drawing my face closer to her, feeling her tiny heartbeat, feeling her warmth. Even at this time when there's nothing to tease me about, she always finds a way to do so. I'm going to be here, and I'll stay here with you as long as you want me to. Few days before she was admitted, I told Evan that I did something for her at my apartment, and she said she would be glad to know whatever it is. When she was at the hospital, I delayed the surprise, and knowing how she'd feel all weary staying there, I figured I could find a way to still do the surprise right in her room. Of course, doing so would take me a lot of effort, considering her sister barely talked to me whenever I visit. She just flickers me a glance every time I drop by, and that glance becomes a silent gesture to let me in and see Evan. Even before I met Evan, I didn't know what a simple glance or nod meant to people when all the words failed to do their duties after years of living without such. Everything I've been experiencing from that day on was always on the unfamiliar edges. Evan's sister let me in a couple of times now, but I don't know what she thinks about me being close to her sister and all. It's obvious she didn't like me, yet how glad and surprised I was when I asked to look out for Evan for one whole night, and she agreed. She told me she needed to step away from the hospital for some time. Despite her obvious disapproval of me, I could see she was somehow grateful to possibly get some hours of sleep from that request. The first thing I did was drop in at the nearest supermarket store in town, buy a few things. The cashier who scanned my purchase items gave me this odd look, sliding them on the counter, thinking it wasn't the time of the year these things were usually bought. Thankfully, she minded her own business and said nothing, and quickly processed my bills, and thanked me with a swift pull of the receipt as I went out. Evan was sleeping when I arrived at her room later that night. I silently move around the room, carefully putting down the things I bought, and watch her in her deep sleep. One look at the oxygen and the supporting machines, with their bright yellow lights twinkling, let me know she isn't suffering from any breathing difficulty, and I consider that a miracle. Aside from that, she's still here, fighting to be with us, to be with me. I move around in silence across the room, making quiet efforts to not wake her up. But she later did, and by then I am glad I'm finished with the surprise. What? Well, where's... Evan muttered, confused, upon waking up. I lift her hand and kiss it, as her lips broke into a tiny smile, one I was grateful to see. Your sister told me she'll be back by 3, I whispered amidst the darkness. From afar, a lamp was shining softly, along with the machines, giving us a little light to get a hold of the room. I'm glad she did. She needs some time off, Evan whispered. Why is it so dark? I stifled a laugh and moved my face closer to hers. Did you remember the surprise I promised you? Evan nodded. Well, I decided to do it right here tonight. Evan's old self beams from her sheet. She cast me this loving smile, softly taking my hand and putting it next to where her cheeks are. What is it? I smiled, and despite the prohibition, I lay next to Evan, with her laughing slightly at the act. She let me lie down next to her, making room for more space in that iron bed, in the dark. You're acting weird, she finally said a few minutes later. I fished a little square green button from under the bed, one that made Evan laugh slightly again within her tubes, as the bed creaks in her every move. Once I held the little button in my left hand, I offered my other arm for her to nestle, in which she gladly lay her head on, while taking care to not crush the tubes supporting her breathing. She contains her excitement as I quickly pressed the button, and the room were then showered in a different hundred hues. From the Christmas lights and little star-like lights I perched atop the ceiling, crafted in a way that reminded me of the time we were at the top of the mountain. Evan gasped in awe, and I could tell she was surprised. She had this little giggle she stifled, bringing her hands all the way to her face, just like the way she usually does when she finds something surprisingly amusing. She snuggled in my arms, laughing in delight, and we both watch in awe as the room dances in different gleaming lights. Even the machines take on the beauty of them with their own yellow and green ones twinkling in time with the ones in the ceiling. All in all, it was a grandiose sight. "You took me back to the mountain," she gaudily whispered. I smiled at her cheek. "You took me back to life." She meets my stares, and within the dark, she reaches out to cup my face within her hands. The next thing I knew, her face was moving closer to mine, and then we were kissing. The kiss doesn't feel like any kiss that people always talk about in the movies, in the novels. It's far more precious than those. And if truth be told, there was no need for words to put them into understanding. It feels right, sweet, and most of all, awakening. It doesn't last that long, but when I felt Evan's head nestling again on my shoulder, I knew it would stay with me forever. Even if that forever means the little amount of time I can live. Later, I tell her how the cashier looked at me when I purchased the lights, and she laughs, and it's great to hear her chuckle despite the trouble every time she has to come up for another breath. She kissed my cheeks over and over again in between laughs, and when all the nights started to fall deeper, I let her fall asleep again. I softly kissed her to sleep.